I kind of got to have, the full debut. All my family flew out to Texas. Starting the game. Got to have kind of, I'm not gonna say a proper debut, but got to really just take a big league field for the first time, starting the game, and yeah, I had a ton of family and friends there, and it was great.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of To the Show We Go Baseball Podcast. Today's episode, we got another return customer here on the show. It's one of our good pals. It's Nick Sogard of the Boston Red Sox. I feel like that's it's kind of fun to say because I feel like when we had you on last offseason, you weren't on the 40-man yet. You hadn't made your MLB debut yet, so a lot's happened since we've last had you on the show. But Nick, I like to throw layups at guys early on, but I guess, you're not down at the complex. You might be going home for the holidays, but how has your offseason been treating you so far?
Yeah, it's been good. It was a long, crazy year for me, but it was great. So just kind of starting off with some downtime has been really nice.
So we didn't really get the time I didn't get the chance at least to talk to you about this, but what was the phone call like or the conversation like when you got called up?
Yeah, so Tracy had texted me, and we were home in Worcester, and I lived so close that it was really quick for me to get over to the stadium. And he texted me like, "Hey, can you come in? We got to talk about some defensive positioning stuff." And this was probably like an hour and a half before our report time. So I thought that was kind of weird. And I had played everywhere on the field, so unless this was going to be moving me to catcher, I didn't know like what this could be about. And I feel like I've been not like looking forward to it, like trying not to look forward to that moment, but or not expecting it either. But anytime something weird kind of happens, it pops into your head, right? Like, oh, maybe this is it. So I'd almost gotten that so far out of my head, but this one felt kind of weird. And then, like right as I was walking into the stadium, I got a text from David Hamilton, and it was just a heart. And I hadn't texted him in a little while, so I didn't know. So I kind of had a feeling of what was going on, but then I got in there, and him and Flo and BC were in there, and he's pretending like he can't pull up this play on his computer or whatever, and then he's like, "Well, you can go make a backhand in the big leagues, right?" And then just a lot of love for those guys. I'm really glad that Chad and Flo and that group got to be the ones to call me up because I think that was pretty special for me. So special for him too. So yeah, that's how that all went down.
I remember a little bit like a few weeks prior to this, Alex Cora had mentioned that you were going to get a shot at some point, and I don't know if I don't know how much people read into that, but had there been conversations with you about the situation with this and when maybe it's something that could happen?
Honestly, not really. I think, I mean, in spring training, I had a good camp, and there was words kind of like just go down and keep doing what you're doing and stuff like that, and even with Abe's and you know people that are in charge, it was trending that direction for sure. But you got to go do it too. So all that stuff in spring training is great, but if you go flop during the season, you're not just gonna you got to earn it the whole way. So I think there's something where, and then kind of moving to first base, like there were things that were trending towards it happening, but I don't know. I feel like it's something that you never know is going to happen until it does.
What is the best part of being a big leaguer? Now, I mean, you were in Worcester for a while. You've had your
Right.
share of the minor leagues. What is the best part of being in the major leagues?
For me, personal fulfillment is a big piece of this. Um, but at the same time, like even some of my friends were like, "Oh, does it like feel like you made it or whatever?" And like, I think it all honestly doesn't at the same time. I feel like I always kind of am chasing like, well, now I want to, make the team this year and then become a starter, an everyday player, and then work towards, I don't know. I guess that's just how my mind works. But I would say it definitely feels good to know that I climbed that mountain to get to that position, and kind of the route I had to take to get there. I know, not an inch of it was given to me. So that definitely feels good.
You said something that I remember this. It was so you came up, you got sent back down after a bit. You were striking out a bunch,
Right.
and I remember that I went to I was talking with you in the dugout, and you said, and this probably isn't word for word, but you basically said the only way to learn how to hit big league pitching is to get more reps against big league pitching. And you weren't sure when you were getting called back up. And like there was a real, almost like a frustration in your voice with that. Like you knew what you had to do. You just needed to get the opportunity to do it. And the next day you got called back up. And I still remember this because I had tickets for the game. They were playing the Blue Jays, and Bowden Franson was like he was just shutting everybody down. And I remember you getting a hit off of him.
Right.
It was, I think it was like one of like 2 hits they got in the entire. It wasn't a great offensive performance, but what was that like getting called up for the second time? Because the first one, like you don't know what to expect. The second time, you know exactly what you need to work on. You know a little bit better what you're going up against. What is that like the second time you get called up and know that like, okay, I'm going to redeem myself here?
It was a huge difference for sure. It really was. And not to say, I had it figured out, because I think no one, you never figure it out. You're always learning. Through the rest of till you're done playing, you're always learning. But I think what I was able to learn with the first stint, compared to like then, even the second time I was up, I think I sat for over 2 straight weeks. I think I went 14 consecutive games without starting a game. So and I'd come in on defense here and there, but I think I went like 14 games without an at bat. So even just sitting there, kind of learning, using that time to my advantage, I think was really important. I was working with Rosie a ton in the cage during that time. And I think we made a couple of mechanical adjustments, as well as just starting to understand the game flow a little bit. And then I think that allowed me to have a pretty good month of September when I was out there.
That's interesting because I remember early in the season, something similar happened with David Hamilton, where he struggled, especially defensively early, but he didn't get sent down. They put him on the bench for a lot of it, and then he came back out and suddenly he got red hot. Was there anything in particular that stands out as something that you learned while you were just watching the game?
It's hard to like pinpoint one singular thing. I think the game itself is very similar, but the style of play is very different at the same time. So it's like, I think that was kind of similar to what I was telling you when I was back down. It's something that even after feeling like I had just gotten socked in the mouth 10 times over the first time I went up, it felt something that was like very doable and very attainable for me. It was just very different. And, I'd also, to your point, been in Worcester the last like almost 2 full years. So I think part of that is I was just getting very accustomed to that style of play and how can I dominate this level. And, whereas maybe you're moving through the minor leagues more, you're just, whatever. I think I was almost honing in on a specific style of baseball that's being played at AAA for the last 2 years. So I think just the style of play being different and understanding, I think just what pitchers are trying to do, what their stuff actually does, how catchers are calling the game. Everything defensively felt the same, very normal. Base running felt all the same. As just kind of how to conduct an at bat there is a little bit different.
When you say the style changes, like what's the maybe not every difference, but like what are some of the bigger differences that took some getting used to for you between AAA and the majors?
I think there's a lot of specialists on the mound where they really have, obviously, I mean, it's the best baseball in the world, so this shouldn't be like a surprise, but there's not a fastball that's being thrown that's just like a flat straight fastball, or so even within like stuff with my approach, where in AAA, if a guy had a great carry heater, I'd just push it down and wait for him to throw one lower, right? Or here, when in the big leagues, they're not going to throw one lower, or they might, but so it's kind of just understanding what they're trying to do on the mound better, kind of adjusting game plan, understanding what I do, but knowing kind of what they're trying to do and understanding that they're going to do what they're trying to do, versus expecting to get multiple mistakes per at bat, maybe in AAA.
Gotcha. That's interesting. You mentioned the defense also kind of feeling the same, and that's something. It's funny because I saw you play so much in AAA, and I always thought you were a good fielder, but I don't know if you appreciate it quite as much until you see it at the major league level, and you're making very difficult plays look routine. I felt, especially at third base, like it was really fun to watch. Did you feel that your defense stepped up a little bit when you got to the majors, just like higher level, bigger stage, you adapt accordingly? Or was it just more, did it feel like it was just, oh, okay, I'm just doing what I've always done?
Both. So I was having probably the worst defensive season of my career in AAA. And it still wasn't a bad defensive season, but I think that's normally by far the strength of, my game. So I just feel like I was by no means getting bored of being in AAA. Like, I'm honored to play every day. I try to play as hard as I can every day, whatever. But I just think like going up was like it's different for sure. The energy's different. Everything is a lot different. I feel like I was kind of looking forward a lot during the year too versus just being present, which was leading to a lot of kind of uncharacteristic mistakes on defense. So I think to your point, I think I just got back to doing what I do when I was up there, but it just kind of took like it almost just was like a reset for me, which was really nice, and it came at like a time that was really important too. It was kind of like late August. I felt like I was kind of dragging too, and it almost just restarted my season, which was really good for my mind.
One of my favorite friendship duos in the system is you and our guy Shug. And the fact that you guys both major league debut in 2024, both spent time on the MLB roster at the same time, and now are both members of the 40-man roster at the same time. Like, how cool was that to be able to do that both in the same season around the same time? I know one of you guys got there before the other, but what was that like though, being able to kind of share that experience with Shug?
It was incredible. Watching him the first time in Baltimore, I was probably more nervous. I probably wasn't more nervous than he was, but it was close for sure. And he did what I expected him to do. I mean, the stuff is electric. He was pitching great. He had some difficult roles that he was given, and I think he just did what he can do. I think, that's not it for him in the big leagues, in my opinion, that's for sure. So, no, but it was just really cool for both of us to do it around the same time, be up, experience, those just everything that the big leagues has to experience for the first time together. David Hamilton being there too was pretty cool. Shug said one time on the bus, he was like if 3 years ago you would have said the three of us would be right here, like we wouldn't have been surprised or something like that. I don't know. It was cool to share those moments with those guys for sure.
You guys contributed meaningfully too. It wasn't just that you got called up there; like you performed.
Right. Yeah, it was fun for sure.
I always hear from a lot of guys and that make their debuts and play at Fenway, and I remember hearing Joe Jakes talk about this at one point in 2023. But when he went up and made his debut, he just kind of talked about like how like Fenway Park was compared to like other parks that you played in, and it's just like obviously for him warming up in the bullpen, all the guys are around you. Obviously, you don't warm up in the bullpen, but he just said that like it feels like everybody's right on top of you when you're on the field, when you're on the mound, in the dugout, wherever. Like, how was your first thoughts of playing in Fenway? Was it everything you thought it was going to be?
And then some. Yeah, it was incredible. I said I had an interview during the year, but my first game at Fenway was a Friday night against Houston. Obviously a really good team, a team that I've watched on TV a bunch. We lost that game, unfortunately, but I told the reporter it was like probably one of the coolest nights of my life to take that field for the first time, in front of a sellout crowd, and just to take all that in was awesome. And I think for me, obviously not having spent a lot of time up, but you could feel I got way more excited. I was excited for every game, of course, but taking the field there just it felt different. So, it was a really cool place to play.
They showed your family a lot in the stands there. What was their reaction to you getting the call up, and did they all just like fly over from wherever in the country, or like how much time did they have to get out to Boston?
Yeah, so like I was saying, I got called up around like noon, and they had a 4 o'clock game at Fenway that day. And typical kind of Alex Cora fashion, the bench was pretty much emptied. I was like the last guy that didn't, the only guy that didn't come into the game, I think. And we walked off, which was pretty cool. And to be honest with you, I was very okay to not get in that ball game. um, so we walked that off, which was awesome. And then I kind of got to have, the full debut. All my family flew out to Texas. Starting the game. Got to have kind of, I'm not gonna say a proper debut, but got to really just take a big league field for the first time, starting the game, and yeah, I had a ton of family and friends there, and it was great.
All right, so obviously, it's well known that in Boston the media might not be as friendly also to people, but they're also everywhere. And I know, if you want to give us a little thanks too on behalf of the Worcester media with the 6 of us there, but I guess how'd you handle all the cameras being in the face? Because I know that for some guys it kind of takes them by surprise. You kind of go in there and you're just like, holy cow! But how did you take it?
Yeah. So from the minute I came over to this organization, they were, telling us the media here is a lot different than it is in most places. So I felt pretty prepared. I think, yeah, to your guys' credit, there's more media in Worcester than probably a lot of other AAA places. So, I feel like, I hear the term like media trained, and they don't really give us specific training, but it seems like we're more prepared for what's to come because it is different for sure. But I felt pretty normal with it, I would say.
Yeah, that is something that kind of it surprised me a little bit because I'm gonna shout out my guy Joe Jakes again, but when he was in Indianapolis, sorry, he's a good friend of the show, but when he was in Indianapolis, he came over to Worcester and he was shocked. Like when they had media day every year, that place is pretty packed with cameras, right. And some of those guys that come up from AA, they got to be like, holy cow, like what is going on? But Joe was telling me in Indianapolis, there's zero media for every single game they have. And he said it was very surprising that, there was actually like people that were at like every game covering the game. So
we'd have guys that had played for a long time, and been in AAA for a long time, and then they'd come to Worcester, and a lot about Worcester is unique to AAA. It's awesome, but especially the media, they're like, is this like normal? And it's like, yeah, it's just how it is.
I do want to ask you too. I saw a quote that you made to somebody, one of the reporters, one of your first weeks, but I might be getting it confused. It might have been you or Shug. I don't know, but
okay.
You guys both probably think the same way. But one of the things that surprised you the most was it was one of your first. Was it your first private plane that you've taken? Was that you that said that, or was that Shug?
That wasn't me that said that, but that rings true for me as well.
Okay. So yeah. I guess obviously that's like a huge perk, but like how did you miss riding the bus at all?
I don't know. I don't remember.
I think you did. It may have not been word for word, but you had said this was the biggest surprise for you. It's like I don't got to get on that bus and ride to Buffalo or wherever you had to go. But how nice was that? I guess once not having to like ride on a bus to wherever.
Yeah, I think all of the accommodations are vastly different from AAA. So yeah, all that stuff is definitely nice. It's a lot more convenient to just do it that way for sure.
The thing that I always hear is that there are other people that are carrying your bags for you. Like you don't have to carry your own stuff. Does that take some getting used to? Like it's almost like reflexive, like, no, I've got this.
Yeah, it's almost like uncomfortable in a way. Like I remember the first time I got called up to AA. you still pack your own bag, right? But the clubby would like take it to the bus for you. And I thought that was like the coolest thing in the world. That it was like, oh, okay, like I don't even carry my bag to the bus anymore or whatever. Like, right? It's just like, but it kind of is uncomfortable. Like, I can just bring it out there, So I don't know. Yeah, it's there's a lot of stuff that might be pretty overdone, but that's part of it.
You'd mentioned Alex Cora earlier. I am curious, what after playing for Chad Tracy for the last 2 years, what was it like getting to play for Cora and him be your manager?
It was cool, man. I think obviously an awesome playing career. I actually watched his playing career a lot growing up with the Dodgers and the Red Sox being the two teams I kind of watched the most. Um, and then obviously he's had a lot of success as a manager already too. So definitely, honored to play for him and the Red Sox as a whole. It was fun.
And if you, I have a little random questions, nothing too crazy. Also, because this is part food podcast, so I also have some food questions.
Okay.
And before I get started on that, what do you
I
got?
mean, I've got a few of the random questions too that I could add in, but I don't mind starting because something that so I did the usual thing that I do where it's like, like, hey, we've got Nick Sogard coming on. Like, you've actually heard of him. He plays for the major league team. What questions do you want me to ask him? And there were a bunch of them about your cousin, Eric.
Okay.
And I guess the question that I had with that wasn't even so much about that. It's just how close are you two? Like, how, like, because he's a bit older than you. Like, how
Right.
did you see him a lot growing up? Like, what's your relationship with him? I did see that when you got called up, he had a tweet about it. It seemed very excited, but I'm just a
Yeah.
little bit curious with that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I actually saw him about a week ago, which was cool. But so being a lot younger than him, as you said, I tracked his career a ton growing up. I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. Um, he got traded to the A's, I think, when he was in like low A from the Padres or something like that. And the A's AAA happened to be in Sacramento where I was growing up. So I was probably at least 50 games that summer. It was the coolest thing in the world for me to watch him play, and obviously wanted to be everything that he was being, and then had a 10-year big league career that I got to watch unfold too as I was getting older too, which was awesome. But we didn't really, he's obviously a busy guy, right? And he grew up in Arizona and then was Oakland, Milwaukee, Toronto, Chicago. So I didn't get to spend a ton of time with him really until 2021, the kind of COVID lockout. So during that off season, he invited me to kind of come stay with him, and he worked out at a pretty cool facility in Arizona where a lot of other big league guys work out. So he thought it would be cool to get me out and work out with him for the week and kind of just see, how to go about it basically. And then the facility ended up offering me to train there for the rest of the off season for free. So I actually moved in with him and his wife and his 5 kids and stayed there for the next like 2 months just training. And we got to obviously know each other a lot better and have been pretty close ever since. He and the squad of 7 came to the debut in Texas, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that answers it. We've definitely gotten a lot closer the last few years.
That's so interesting. Like, because 2021, you were what? Had you been traded to the Sox at that point, or were you? Was that
I
like
got
right
traded.
before it?
I was sitting in his kitchen. I was training to go back to Tampa Bay. I was sitting in his kitchen a couple weeks before I was going to head out. And I got a phone call from a number that I didn't have saved. And I never answer those, which I probably should. But and for whatever reason, I like left the room and answered the phone. And then it was them telling me that I got traded. So then I walked back out and told them like, hey, I'm on the Red Sox now. Like it was a pretty cool moment. But yeah, so I had just gotten traded. Kike was actually there training, and he had just signed, I think, his free agent deal with the Red Sox. So we showed up to training the next day as Red Sox. I guess I was kind of Greenville Drive member, but still the same.
Yeah. I have a cousin that's also 13 years older than me, and he's my godfather, which was like kind of wild when you think about it. Like if something like this 13-year-old's supposed to Like if something happens to my parents, take care of me. That's kind of insane. But I looked up to him a ton growing up, and I guess and I don't know if this is going to make sense, but what did it feel like, I guess, to be getting that almost like that acknowledgement from somebody that you obviously looked up to? You're going to 50 of his games in AAA. Like this is, I'm sure, like within your family, that's a pretty big deal. Like this is Eric, the major leaguer. Like did it feel like you had gotten like you had gotten his approval, or what was I guess, like for you internally, what were you going through with that?
Yeah, I never really felt that way with him. I think he had a great collegiate career and obviously a great minor league and major league career. But I think he kind of understood how hard it is to even be playing professional baseball. So I was never really chasing and I'm not saying that's what you're saying, but never really chasing his approval to be a big leaguer. I think he was just taking time out of, his day to day to kind of see what the position I was in, and however he can help me, achieve my personal goals is what he wanted to do. So, I'm grateful for all the time he spent with me. I think he enjoys it too, for sure. But it was definitely valuable, the timing of it kind of heading into that year, and every step of the way, even talking to him during some tough times last year, especially early on, being able to kind of talk to him and see what he's got for me is really nice.
Did he hold it over you all? I don't know if you heard the audio, but wasn't there a call in one of your games where they were calling you Eric?
Yeah.
I think it was your first home run, wasn't it? I think
it was a spring training homer, and they said home run for Eric Sogard or something like that. And he texted me after and said, keep hitting homers so they keep giving me shout outs or something like that. It was funny.
Yeah, I couldn't remember what it was. I was like, I don't think they did that to you on your debut, but I know they did it to you at some point in 2024. But okay. Yeah,
that
I remember
happens
that
all the time.
Okay.
All the time.
Yeah. I remember you hitting one in spring training, and Dave O'Brien was like, Eric Sogard, a home run. I was like, oh man, that's tough.
Do the homework, Dave. Come on.
Yeah. Put some respect on my guy Nick over here. All right. So I told you this is like a part food, and I know I asked you some food stuff last off season, but I know you went to a few different cities on the road. Did you get a chance to go out in any of those cities? I know that it was a little hectic. You were the rookie on the team, and you were still very new to you, but did you get a chance to try eat anywhere or do anything? Where was some of your favorite spots you went on the road?
A pretty basic answer, but New York City was probably my favorite food. Yeah.
Okay. And then I also wanted to tie this in as well. Obviously we talked about Fenway and how cool it was to play at Fenway. What about road stadium? Where did you like playing the best on the road that you got to go to?
Yeah. I really wanted to start a game in Yankee Stadium. We had a 4-game set there, and that didn't happen. So hopefully we can make that happen this year. Just to be a part of that rivalry, obviously, just so much history, and it's Yankee Stadium, right? It's a cool thing to be on the Red Sox playing there. So I really wanted that one. I remember really liking Kansas City because we had just played in Texas, which had 6 stories of firework after a home run. It was so loud. I had a headache after every game. And then we went to Kansas City, and it kind of felt like baseball again because that was my second series in the big leagues. So I remember being very appreciative of Kansas City.
Kaufman's nice too. I like Kaufman.
Yeah.
So this is a highlight, low light part. Who is the toughest pitcher that you had to face in the majors? And then what was the moment that you were the most proud of? And it could be on the defensive end of the ball. It could be hitting. You had the game with 2 doubles. But what moment, like what in-game moment, not like making your debut, not getting your first hit, just like what specific thing that you did, you're like, yeah, that was really good that I did that.
Low light would probably be Corbin Burns.
Yeah, Burns is. I totally don't have his agent on the line selling him for like that 10-year contract he's trying to get. But what makes him so tough to hit?
Part of me really hopes he doesn't sign with the Red Sox because I want a chance again. No, I'm just kidding. No,
Hey, you got spring training, right?
Right, and he'll probably get me again. No, but I think he can just make the ball go both ways, up and down. He can do whatever he wants with the ball. I think I had the wrong game plan on all 3 of my at-bats, and if you go in there with that, it's going to be pretty tough. But so yeah, he's probably my low light. I guess it's an honor to have him as my low light, huh? But
good pitcher.
The highlight, a specific moment I remember during my debut, I guess, series. They brought LeClaire in to face me, and I know he probably didn't have, the year that he expected of himself, but watching a lot of that World Series run and knowing the caliber of pitcher he is, I think I had a couple pretty good at-bats off him, just so that kind of not reaffirmed, but it was almost like a moment in my mind where it was like, okay, like I know the caliber of pitcher he is, and having some success, it's like, okay, then if I can do it off him, there's no reason we can't just do this. So
that was something that was interesting watching you hit, especially when you first got called up. A lot of time rookies look like deer in headlights. You looked like a veteran. It was so interesting to watch. And I know like you've been playing for a while, but there is that difference between the majors and AAA. Did you feel like when you got up there, did you feel like, oh, I've got this, or was it a little bit scary until those at bats came in against LeClaire?
Well, so we faced Urania the first my start, and I had faced him a lot in AAA. I don't think I'd ever gotten a hit off him, but I'd faced him a lot, so it was at least like, okay, this literally is no different because I faced this guy a bunch. So that was kind of comforting. But that first stint up, I think, like I said, I got socked in the mouth a lot. I think I had like three strikeout games, maybe more. I don't know. It just didn't feel like I was playing my style of baseball at all. So I think I really didn't feel like I was settling in until the second time up. And then that kind of like for sure affirmed everything that I hoped to find out, was that not only can I like hang around here, but I can excel here and I can dominate here. Like that was kind of thoughts that where I was starting to show up, during that month of September. So I think facing a guy like Kevin Gausman too, a elite pitcher, and feeling like, this is where I belong, and, stuff like that was starting to cement that into my mind as this is where we're at.
I know you're not like a huge social media guy. I know, you dabble on Twitter and Instagram and stuff like that, but I don't know. Did you take a peek at any of the stuff like after you got promoted to the MLB club? Did you kind of like, were you more hands off and just like, I don't want to see anything? Like, because obviously like sometimes social media is like a wild place, especially when you're playing for the Boston Red Sox. It could be even louder. So is that something that you kind of were just like, I'm not even going to look at it, like I don't care what they're saying? Or were you kind of like, I just want to take a peek, see what they're saying?
I had been planning for that for a good bit, getting advice from a lot of different people saying you need to just delete all of it, just it can be tough after some certain games or whatever. So I've been thinking about how I was going to go about that for a little bit. I kind of just enjoyed it though, honestly, like the good, the bad, the like completely horrible things some people would say, but it's honestly like it's a privilege to, if they're going to take the time out of their day to write some insane message to you, it's like that doesn't happen for everybody. So if people are taking the time out of the day to do that to you, you're doing something right, even though that day maybe you didn't. So I think that was kind of the perspective I've had with it. So I've honestly just tried to enjoy it. It's crazy. It's kind of funny. It's sad sometimes, but that's what comes with it.
That's really good advice, though. Like, I feel like I need to take that advice a little bit better because sometimes you see this stuff and you're like, "Oh my, is my life in danger? Like, what's
Right.
going on here?" But
Yeah, I
you're right. Like,
mean,
most people don't. Like, most people aren't relevant enough to have total strangers talking about them like that.
yeah, it's an honor.
Yeah, because I was gonna say when if you went 0 for 5 with 3 strikeouts in Worcester, you're not gonna be getting a ton of tweets or messages on
Right,
Instagram or whatever. It's like you suck, like get out of here, like blah blah blah. And
right,
it's like, but then you do it, in Boston, it's like you might have a couple of those, eggs on social media that are just like sending you messages of like you stink, get out of here, get off my team type thing. It's like, holy
right.
cow, dude.
Yeah,
It had to be
especially,
a little wild.
yeah, I think especially with sports betting now too, I would like
Oh
to
yeah.
even throw a compliment to Red Sox fans and that they were awesome when I was there. It wasn't a lot of time, but the time that I was there was incredible. I felt like very loved and supported from all the people I interacted with and that was really cool. So I think a lot of times even these messages are coming from people that really probably aren't even fans of the team or just happen to place a bet that day, or maybe they are fans of the team and maybe they care a lot, which is cool too. But so there's all that type of stuff going on as well.
There was one super exciting game, very close to the end of the season, that I'm just wondering your perspective on it. That the Tyler O'Neill walk off.
Yeah,
What was it like? What was it like playing in that game?
awesome. The Fenway nights literally are like all like a blur. Like they're just it's like a movie every time, which is kind of like a corny thing to say, but it really does feel like that. Like I don't know if that wears off over time or what, but it was just really cool, and to see the way that that guy can hit a baseball and to do it in a walk off was pretty crazy. I think he already had a homer that game too, about the same way, just 150 off the bat at like 45 degrees. So yeah, it's fun when he gets a hold of one.
All right, I got 2 questions left for you. My first one, it's about one of your teammates this past year. Obviously, you also were a teammate with him in Worcester, but were you surprised at all to see that Willie Abreu got a Gold Glove? And what were you thinking whenever that came across?
Not surprised. Um, Not a knock on his physique at all. Very in shape guy, but he's a little stockier, right? So you might not think he can move as well as he can move, but he can cover so much ground. He has probably the best arm I've ever seen. The stuff he did in his short time in Worcester was incredible, obviously offensively, but defensively, like I think as far as an all-around player goes, he's got everything you could want in a baseball player. So not surprised, really happy for him. Awesome person. Um, yeah, just can't give enough flowers to Willie.
A similar question about a teammate. The guy that you played with a long time in Worcester, is finally hitting free agency for the first time in Bobby Dahlbeck, and Bobby had. I guess the best way I can put it would be a tumultuous run here. Really great start, and then things kind of got tougher. I feel like he is one of these people that's smart to get off of social media if he was reading it previously. But it's a guy that I feel like a lot of people have said he just needs to get like a fresh start somewhere. And I guess just being a guy that played with him for a while, like what do you think would be the right opportunity for Bobby Dahlbeck?
I think if a big league team, said, "Hey Bob, we're going to give you 500 at bats to play left field, right field, third base, first base, and you're going to be out there." I think he would put together a very good major league season. I think the tools that he has are undeniable. Everyone knows, the physical tools. He's one of the most impressive guys that plays baseball. That's that's not really an exaggeration. But yeah, I think there was a lot of, just kind of maybe in his head stuff going on in Boston. And yeah, I'm just I'm almost relieved for him that he can start fresh, and I'm really excited to see what he puts together this year for sure.
Yeah, so what you're saying is 50 home run season incoming with the Rockies this year.
That would be incredible.
That would
I
be
would love
fun
it.
to watch him in Colorado.
Sure
I
would.
will say that.
That would be awesome.
Um, Ed stole my thunder there because I had a question for you. I asked Trace this earlier today because I was curious on his insight. So this is also a teammate question for you, but I want to know which thing impresses you the most. So you have two options here. One, Bobby Dahlbeck in 2023, when he was moving trains in the outfield. He hit one off the duck boat in left center field. Like he was hitting the farthest home runs I've ever seen in my entire life. So that year, I think he hit like 33 and 100 or something. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
Or the 105 walks by Chase Shugart in 2024.
Chase Shugard's nickname was Force Field because that's what he had over home plate. That's a good.
It's tough, man. I was thinking about it. I'm like, I don't know.
I'm glad you brought up Chase Shugart because there's a lot of talk about the big 3 or 4, and very rightfully so, all super impressive young players, but that kid should be right in the conversation with all of those guys. He's an incredible player.
Could not agree more with you. Just his approach is so impressive. Like he does not miss out of the strike zone.
Yeah.
He had like almost double, I think, the walks as strikeouts this year. All-time record for the AAA level for the Red Sox for walks in a single season. Just he's under the radar very good. I completely agree.
100%. Yeah, I would throw him in with those 4 guys. And with that being said, I'm going to say Bobby's home runs.
Fair. All right. But I know what you're saying though, is like that the 105, it's that's I don't know when the next time that's going to happen in that amount of games that he plays.
It's really his comfortability to hit with 2 strikes because there's so many at bats he would just take. He would tell me, so he let off a lot and I hit behind him a lot. And we'd be talking before he'd go up, I'm gonna swing at the first pitch, and I'd almost laugh at him, right? Like, but he was serious, and then he would take 2 fastballs right down the middle to go to 0-2, and then take a slider in the dirt, foul a ball off, and then he'd work his walk. But it's like just his comfortability to go 0-2 and not think for a second about it is what allows 105 walks to happen.
How helpful is it for you batting right behind him just to see all those pitches before you bat? Does that make a big difference?
I normally like to hit behind someone that's hitting from the same side as me to kind of see, it doesn't always translate. If I'm hitting behind Cassis, I understand they're probably going to pitch him a little differently than they would pitch me, but generally speaking, just what pitches they're using to, in my case, a lefty a lot of the time, or whatever. But yeah, for my draw's case specifically, I would know a lot of the time they're trying to throw me a first pitch strike. You just wasted 9 pitches on him and he's laughing at you on first base. So, he's a fun player to play defense with on the infield and to hit behind, and he makes any team better, that's for sure.
All right, Nick, I promise you we'll let you out. I have one last one. I don't know what Ed's got. Ed, do you have anything to empty the tank here?
Yeah, I've got one last one. Of all of the guys you got to play with in the big leagues, minor league, major league, everybody that like you've played with, best defender.
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah, because there's some good fielders on this team, despite what some might say.
Yeah. The one that is like just hitting me in the face is Cedar Rafaela in center field. And I mean, I would say him at shortstop too. It's what they have him do is so difficult, right? Like, I think and I'm not saying he should have one position, but if he was playing one position, I think he would win the Gold Glove every year at either one. It's really hard to do center field and shortstop, but the fact that that's even possible, right? Like, I think And Willier's not far behind, in my opinion, or maybe just as good, right? But just Rafael, I think, stands out the most to me in center field as probably the best defender I've ever played with. And just I've played with him so much in the minor leagues as well. Some of the catches that he's made are just like you really can't even describe them. So I would have to give him the nod.
Yeah, well, watching him in Worcester last year in that little short stint he had was incredible.
Yeah.
Just watching him get to track down some of those balls, man, that was crazy. All right,
Yeah.
I got one more for you. I'm a big fan of speaking things into existence. I always think that Ed, this isn't going. I asked him the chicken question last year. I don't have.
No,
to
I know. I'm not expecting that. I'm
Okay.
seeing where you're going. I'm seeing where you're going with this.
It's nothing crazy, actually. But all right, I lost my train of thought there. All right, cool. So I'm a big fan of speaking things in existence. Like I just like saying it, repeat it, and I'm hoping it's just gonna become a thing. So for you, you got your MLB debut out of the way. You got your first hit, you got all that stuff out of the way. So you're going into year 2 on the 40 man, kind of like, okay, like we got this spring training. Like I'm a big leaguer right now. By November 19th of 2025, so a year from now, what are a couple things that you would like to speak into existence? Like what would you like to have accomplished in the 2025 season?
All I'm really hoping for this season is opportunity. I think with that, I will take care of the rest.
Well, I was looking for a shout out to one of your famous quotes that you gave me that I always see it recycled now, by the way. You know the quote I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I do.
I always see people like put it back out there, and I'm just like, it's like, didn't Nick say that like 2 years ago, like to me or something?
Yeah.
But I always like when I think about you and like just watching you like on the field, it's like I always think of that quote, and I'm just like, like if you just give that guy an opportunity and you just like, okay, like, you watch him play this week, like, all right, like it's a good guy, but then you see it for like a month and then a month and then a month. It's like, oh shit, kind of a good player. Like it's pretty good. So I think that resonates like pretty hard with people. It's like, okay, like that quote is like perfect for you. I don't know why I just thought of it with your answer.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it even kind of showed in this first stint, right? Like the first time up was not very good. And then the second time up, as time kind of went on, you started to see like, okay, like he's not just playing here, but he's helping us out or whatever. And I think for whatever reason, that's kind of just the way my play style works. I feel like I just learn as I go, and yeah, I don't know, that's it.
There's a great Honus Wagner quote that I go back to a lot, which is just there ain't much to being a ball player if you're a ball player, and that's kind of what I think about. Like with you, you really are you're just a good ball player, I
appreciate it.
Well, Nick, we appreciate all the time, man. It's always a pleasure. Obviously, we were excited for you this year, getting added and making the debut, and we'll be looking out for you in spring training. Obviously, your first official big league. I guess you got an NRI last year, but your first official 40-man roster big league. So, Nick, we appreciate all the time, and we'll be chatting with you probably when spring training comes around.
Sounds good, guys. I appreciate it as always.